hi, and welcome to a session from PMO Learning. I am Lindsay Scott. I'm one of the co-founders of PMO Learning, and today's session is all about the kind of more people side of stuff, and my background's always been around things like career related things to do with PMOs. So it's a subject that I've focused on really for many years, having worked in PMO recruitment and just general giving careers advice, career coaching for people in PMOs. So I thought it'd be quite nice for a Friday session, something kind of nice, quick, just something that you can have a listen to while you're having lunch. And but it's also a good opportunity if you are looking for work at the moment, and specifically around PMOs. If you want to ask me any questions about any of the stuff that we're already, we're talking about today, but again, get me while you can. If you have any questions around PMO and careers and stuff, as well as obviously around the training, please do make sure that you open up your chat, and we'll make sure that I'll see those as we go through, and I'll try my very best to help. So today's session is all about it's about using your PMO training to get a new job. The reason why I thought this would be a good session is that I know that, as many people, finding work, is that sometimes there's the obvious thing, which is I'm going to do some training because I've not got something on my CV and I need to get something on there. But actually, there are other ways in which you can use some of your training to actually help you in finding that work as well. So hopefully it'll just be about making you think maybe a little differently about this whole connection between, training and gaining new knowledge, and, this thing about finding a new job. So we're going to do 10 different ways, a nice bit of clickbait when they call things like 5 best things and top 5 and top 10. So we're going to go for 10 ways to use your PMO training to get a new job. So before we crack on with that, so just a little bit about PMO Learning, if you're not already familiar. But very basic things that we do, the USP, if you like, is that we do PMO training courses for PMO people, and they are actually delivered by trainers that do have experience in PMO, which makes all the difference. If you're sitting here listening to this today with working in PMO, you'll know just how different and diverse PMO can be, and how different it can be to project management. And it's crucial that when you're being trained up in different aspects of PMO, it always helps if you're being trained by somebody who's probably been there and done it before, because you'll have some great conversations on your training. So today's session, I'm going to be mentioning a few things. So you'll see P3O pop up, and also the essentials courses from the House of PMO. Those are the 2 certification-based courses that we offer. And then you'll also hear me popping up with some more specialized courses that we do as well. So, we'll see those as we go through, but those are just some of the things that we actually do that are very much for PMO people. Okay, so let's crack on then. So 10 different ways to think differently about taking up training to help you find a new job. And just if you are do have chat available, just let me know. Are you looking for a new job today, right now? Or is this something that you just thought title might be, enticing? I might need it in the future. Just let me know, because that's it's always good to know what people's situations are. Okay, let's crack on then. So number 10, having worked in PMO recruitment for over 15 years, worked with a lot of organizations, obviously, over that time, recruiting for PMO people. And one of the things that a lot of hiring organizations think is that the training and professional development that you do goes a long way in showing them how serious you are about, yourself, your career, and your own development. Because I think we all recognize that in PMO, there's always new things to be learning, just because the sheer nature of what PMOs do in organizations today. And it does show, initiative and commitment to what it is that you're doing. If you whether you're doing it individually, i.e. paying out of your own pocket, or if you're selecting courses while you're working within an organization, but not only, benefit your organization today where you're working, but also be one eye on, where PMOs are heading in terms of, the kind of skills, upskilling that's required. So it goes a long way when in searching for roles, in interviews, things like that. It gives you something great to talk about in interviews as well. So again, it's about showing initiative and commitment, it is really taken on board. So that's a good one. It's a really nice one to start with. I mentioned there about upskilling. So it's about upskilling in an area that there is a particular weakness. Now, you're probably having a look around at job advertisements, and there'll be some things in that job advertisement, some kind of roles and responsibilities that that you are not as strong as you could be. It could even be that you have very, very limited knowledge. And if you're looking for work, and these are the job advertisements that are pretty much showing what is out there at the moment, and the kind of PMO roles there are and what is expected of them, it's obvious that, as a profession and as a professional working in this space, it's up to you to be aware of where your gaps are and to have plans in order to try and fill those. Now, we're not all talking about, the training courses I've just mentioned and the things that PMO Learning do. We also, upskilling can be in areas which are not necessarily directly related to PMO. They can be a little bit more generic. For example, one of the things that we see quite a lot in PMOs at the moment is this whole drive towards the analytical improvements that become made around reporting. You can't get away from things like Office 365, Power BI, deeper data analytics, that kind of thing. It's a prime example of an area that is very hot right now in terms of PMOs and where they're going and where they're developing. So again, thinking about upskilling in an area that you have a weakness in, because really when it comes to finding new work, that there will be competition for those roles, and some of those other people will be doing this kind of activity. So this is about taking control and really actively addressing where some of your weaknesses or your gaps might be. So there we go. We've got the advanced reporting and data analytics is very much a thing right now. You can see sometimes on job advertisements where they're talking about a particular system or tool, and actually, you have got the ability to be able to, try out tools and different systems and demos and things like that in order to familiarize yourself, because sometimes training is not about the ability to utilize these things inside and out. We don't become an expert from a training course. This is about gaining the knowledge. Yeah, the experience and the skill comes from actually using that knowledge in the day-to-day work. So you have the options out there to go and have a look at tools and to get familiar with what it is that they're there to do. And also within PMOs, you've got so many different service areas that you can be looking at. And we, class a service area will function around things like benefits management, assurance is just two examples. And then, of course, we've just mentioned the fact that we have 2 courses that very much are aligned to that. But also things like, the delivery frameworks that are available now, which means that your organization, are utilizing these things, whether it is about business agility or agile in terms of Scrum, all of those kind of things. It's again up to you as an individual, to make sure that you're familiar with and you understand what these things are about. And of course, we just mentioned agile, and we have a really popular course, and has been over the last few years, is the whole approach for PMO people in terms of how do you support not only agile projects at project and program level, at portfolio level, and that kind of now that scaled agile that many people all have heard about, called SAFe. All of that kind of stuff comes together in that course. So again, there's a lot of areas, and that's what's brilliant about PMO. We know that we've got a lot of things that we can get our teeth into, which unfortunately means there's a lot of stuff that we've got to keep on top of. Not necessarily, like I said, becoming an expert in every single thing, but at least enough in order to be able to converse like what you're talking about. So number 8 is about, when you're doing any kind of training, and before looking for a new job. The best thing, as I said, is that you're gaining the knowledge, but the real benefit is being able to have that opportunity to actually utilize that knowledge and start to build up some real good experience in it. Now, what I will say for people that are not necessarily looking for a new job today, you can think about this right now, which is about utilizing any kind of training knowledge that you've gathered and any new learnings in your current role in order to build up that real world experience before you start looking for a job. I mean, it might seem obvious, an obvious thing to state, but actually, you know, not many people really think about it like that. It's almost like we very much focus on where we are now without one eye to where I might be in the future, whether that future is 6 months, a year, you know, wherever it might be. And I think it's thinking about, you know, if I'm going to go on a particular training course, whether I'm funding it or my organization's funding it, am I going to have that opportunity to be able to utilize this kind of learning when I finish that course? Because that's when the real learning comes, doesn't it? When you're actually using it in the real world and, you know, all the trials and tribulations that come with that. Number 7 is about the demonstration. So the demonstrating your knowledge from your training and the learnings and the good practice and stuff actually in the interview. So we're moving on now to, you know, actually being in the interview. It's really important that you're able to bring in some of the, you know, what we might call the best practice, the textbook answers, but actually it is also about bringing them together with the realities. You get the classic questions about, can you tell me how you might approach X? Or how would you put this thing in place and make it work? You know, those kind of questions, and you're able to bring in and utilize and demonstrate that, yes, I've got the real world, you know, realities. This is what I've done in my previous roles, and this is what's happened within my organizations that I've worked in. Also recognizing that actually, you know, there are standardized approaches and things that you try to incorporate and tailor and things like that. So it's, again, it's about the demonstration within the interview session that really can set you apart, because, you know, that's what organizations want from their employees, that it's that mix of bringing in best practices, but the abilities to tailor it, to flex it, to make it work for the organization in the role that you're currently working in. So again, want to think about when you're doing this, you know, thinking about your training and your upskilling and which areas that you're weak within, and looking at what's required within jobs today around PMOs, and just making sure that you know, are able to articulate what you're learning in relation to the realities of how you do the job. Within training as well, today was obviously, you know, the textbooks. So we've got the books like the P3O, and the P3O book, which comes with obviously the foundation level training, doesn't come with a practitioner level, because what you're expected to do is that you can't do the practitioner course unless you've done the foundation. So there's no need to have a textbook given to you if you're going to do the practitioner course, because there's the understanding that you've already got it because you've done the foundation. So not many people realize that actually you can't do the P3O practitioner without doing the foundation level. But either way, you get the textbook, and the textbook is one of those things that for people that have been working in PMO for a few years still gets picked up a lot in the day-to-day kind of work that you do. And one of the ones that's always been utilized is something called Appendix F. If you just put in Google Appendix F P3O, you'll see quite a few people chatting about it. But it does get utilized a lot because that is where there's the list of functions and services. You know, so there's a lot of good stuff that people will still refer to that's not, you know, necessarily to do with the you know, the training course anymore. And there's the other one like the P3O competency framework, because you get that one as part of the House of PMO Essentials courses. And again, you know, the books like the P3O competency framework are not books that are just purely used within the training and then forgotten about. These are books that will, you know, you will keep throughout your professional working life working within PMO. So how does that help in terms of getting a new job? I said, well, actually, this is thinking about the CV, actually thinking about, you know, is it saying everything that it needs to be said about your particular experiences in order to, you know, attract hirers when they're reviewing CVs? So one of the things that I said about, say, for the P3O manager, and I'll show you in a second, is that, it's just a looking at all the different services and functions that exist within a PMO's remit. And again, we know they vary from person to person, depending on what kind of PMO that you're working within. But the P3O covers all of them, pretty much every single type of scenario, whether you're just working at project level, a program level, a portfolio level, a center of excellence, whatever it might be, it's all in there. And what it allows you to do is look at what those things are and just do that sense check-in against what I'm presenting on my CV. So let's have a look at what I mean in terms of that P3O one. So these, what you're seeing on screen right now, are the PMO services that are mentioned within that manual. And there's a lot more detail, obviously, in the textbook, but these are just the highlights of, these are pretty much the kind of areas where PMO people get involved today. So if you're looking at your own particular CV and thinking about, what is it that I actually do and that I want to list off in terms of my roles and responsibilities, there's the skills, the tools, the different techniques that are used and all that kind of good stuff. Because you will be surprised that when you get ready to start looking for a new job, chances are that your CV, you might not have updated it for a number of years. And you may have also forgotten about some of the things that you might not necessarily be doing today, but actually your role changed slightly about a year ago and that you're not doing some aspects anymore. So actually, this is a sense check to make sure that you're covering off all the different kind of, service function areas that you have experience within. You'll be surprised just how many things get missed. And that's the competency framework is brilliant for that as well. More so than P3O, because it goes into a lot more detail about the kinds of activities that you will be performing at the different levels within the different competency areas. So it's a really useful tool, not just for using it on your training courses, but it with P3O or the essentials courses, but actually you will utilize them in different aspects of your life, including getting ready for finding a new job. So again, just a different way to think about some of the materials and textbooks that you get access to. Another one here is about, again, just thinking about the CV and the profiles that you're writing, because I think we can't ignore the fact that a lot of recruitment these days is done via LinkedIn. It is the place for people to have their professional profiles. It is the place where a lot of organizations are spending their money in terms of job advertisements. The world has changed, even in the last 5 years, in terms of how many agencies exist in the world these days. A lot of the smaller specialist ones have got gobbled up by some of the big boys. There's less places for people to actually look for jobs online, all of that kind of good stuff. So LinkedIn makes a lot of sense in order to be able to get your profiles aligned with the CV. But again, LinkedIn profiles are not a CV. So, just a different way of looking at it. And I think what we'll probably cover off at a future PMO learning session is probably look at the LinkedIn profile a little bit more in terms of how you can utilize that in your job searching. But back to this one, this is more about the terminology and language use that you can be, that you need to ensure is in your CV and your profiles, making sure that it's mirroring, the kind of things that you're picking up in training, and also mirroring in terms of the job advertisements that you're seeing. I think, unfortunately, we've got to a place now where the whole recruitment process is done by, we know that database sifting gets done as often as a first line. So making sure that your CV can get through the initial hurdle. And again, there's probably a few other steps before, a real person is reviewing your CV or actually understands, where you're coming from. They probably understand the role of PMO. They could be your line manager or something like that. So there's a few steps along the way where actually it's only it could be a computer, it could be an HR representative that are looking at the CVs, and they tend to look at, the keywords. So one of the things that you generally can do when you think about the training is, are you using the right kind of terminology when you're describing some of the things that you're doing? The classic ones are things like, if if you're talking about the different kinds of meetings or workshops or steering committees or things like that, are you utilizing the right kind of wording for it? Or, you know, if I'm doing reporting, for example, am I doing, what is it, stage gating, progress recording, highlight reports? All of those are particular terms that, you know, do get, you know, utilized in our profession. So are you describing it in the way that's expected? So sometimes you can find that you know, that when you've been on a particular course, that there'll be some newer words or newer terminology that you've not come across before, that yes, you can start to utilize it if you obviously understand you know, what it all means. So again, it's again, this is coming from you learning the new knowledge and then utilizing it, but not only, you know, at CV level, because remember, whatever you put on that CV, it's fair game for any kind of interview questions. So again, it's about being, you know, being able to articulate your understanding and what you've learned. So terminology and language use, especially for people that might be fairly new to PMO, is where you might see it quite a lot. But again, we've just talked about, you know, there's newer things coming into play, like scaled agile, for example, and some of the safe terminology that goes there, things like guardrails and value streams and things like that. But also with things like the data analytics fields, where you have got certain terminology to describe the way that reporting is being done now, using things like Power Apps and, you know, different platforms, things like that. So again, just hopefully, you know, you're utilizing the right kind of language. So number 4 is all about meeting other people on the course. We often think that, you know, we're there to learn what we can from a trainer, but actually you'll be learning things from other people, and that's what makes it fun. You know, that's what makes a classroom kind of setting, whether that be virtually or in person. That's what gives us that kind of added value, because, you know, PMOs, sometimes it can feel, you know, especially if it's only you or a couple of you working within the PMO, it can feel a lonely place sometimes. And there's nothing better than being around other people that also work in PMO, because it's suddenly like your eyes are open and thinking, gosh, these other people get what I do for a living. And actually we can have a conversation on a completely different level without me having to explain the bits and pieces before people can actually understand what I'm talking about. So it's always great to meet other PMO people. And obviously with a PMO related course, that's going to happen. But the thing is about meeting others on the course is that actually not only will you be building, you know, additional knowledge, some additional value from the material as you work through a training course, you're going to need these kind of people. These people are your PMO network. And, you know, in all the years I'd worked in recruitment, there was always this thing where, you know, yes, I worked for a recruitment agent. Yes, people were applying for roles directly to advertisements, but actually most people, and if you ask around your friends and family, will find that they don't get their jobs through those kind of channels. They get it through people they know. And if you're wanting to, you know, work for a longer period of time, you know, in PMOs because you love it, you need to be building up your PMO network. And these kind of places and training courses, especially as you're spending sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5 days with these people, you're building up a really good relationship with them. And these people will be useful to you in the future, no doubt about it, and vice versa, of course. But it is the network where a lot of people do find their future work from. Okay, you go on a training course today, you know, you might be bearing fruit from that in 5 years' time because you kept up to date and kept in contact with people that you've met along the way. So again, you know, it absolutely is crucial, and people hate the word around network and networking, you know, but actually sometimes all it is just keeping in touch with people. But let's face it, you've spent a substantial amount of time with them on a training course, and these are the easiest people that you can network with. So that's the others. It's like meeting people on the course is really going to hold, you know, some benefits in finding new work in the future. Now, one of the other things that a lot of people, you know, like I said, is using things like LinkedIn to find work. Now, we know that, you know, any future employer, when they're going through that whole hiring process, they will look at your external profiles. You know, it's just part of a norm now. We'll be looking at social media profiles, and they'll certainly be expecting that you'll have some kind of LinkedIn profile. So why not be sharing your insights and learnings from your recent courses in those kind of places online. You know, it can be as simple as, you know, oh, I've just been on the P3O Foundation course. I found it really helpful in these respects, or I really loved this bit. And actually what you'll start to find is that you'll be making some connections. Hey, you suddenly now you're networking, but you're also demonstrating that, you know, not only have I been on this training course, I want other people to think about, you know, what I thought about it, and maybe I can get some other stuff back from them too. Again, in this day and age, a lot of the, you know, the job seeking activities are, you know, about raising your profile so you can be seen. You know, you really ideally want to get to a point where people will come to you with a job opportunity rather than you having to go out there and find it. And the only way you can do that is if people know where you are, what you're about. Yeah. You can use these kind of insights and learnings from your course just to start a conversation with others. And that might be a case of going back into the workplace and just, you know, starting to utilize what it is you've learned. If nothing else, those kind of conversations are going to help cement what you've learned. And hey presto, when it comes to things like the interview and potential, you know, future employers, you're going to be able to hold those conversations and answer those questions a lot better. So practice. Yeah. So think about what conversations I can start with what I've just learned. It's going to really help you, you know, in terms of things with the interviews. And of course, there's connections with others. There's other people that have recently been on the same course as you, or thinking about going on the same course. You know, make connections with them. You know, again, we've said the network becomes massively important as you go through your career. And of course, doing this kind of stuff also shows your own network that you're an active, you know, that you're an active person, that you're doing stuff around your profession. You look like you've shown you that initiative and that, you know, passion for what it is that you're doing. It makes a big difference when it comes to the whole kind of workplace experience, because people, when the hiring organizations are going through that hiring process, they will be looking at your media. So isn't it great if they can see and actually, yeah, you know, this person's really got some commitment to what they're doing in this field. Something to think about. The other things that you get on training courses are just obviously not necessarily just the materials that you're working with on the particular course that you're pursuing. There will always be different resources that you will be signposted to. It always happens because of the nature of training, certainly in fields around the you know, all of the PMO courses that we're doing, because of the experiences that come out from individuals. They can't help but share, oh, I found something that we're really good about this, or, you know, I think you're going to have a look at this TED talk. It's really good at showing you this. All of us kind of signposting things that happen. And it not only comes from your trainer, and, you know, it gives you that opportunity to, you know, look at some more learning and some more upskilling. And those things tend to be things that are not formal training courses. They're bits and pieces of, you know, online webinars or things like that. And these, again, are all about, you know, widening your knowledge and, you know, helping you to think about areas where you need to be doing more upskilling. But you'll also be picking up things from other learners as well. One of the things that we, you know, will always come up is like, well, what other things are people going to? You know, again, PMO, there's a lot of people out there that are working in this field would love to meet you and would love to be chatting with you and finding out what you do and them sharing with you what they do. You know, PMO has a conference all of its own in London each year, and you're able to go and do that mixing and mingling in an environment that is all about PMO, and it feels great because people know, you know, it's all about the chosen profession you've gone for. And we're talking now about, you know, not only more knowledge, but more connections. So it's more opportunity to meet others in industry around PMO. And the great thing is we're getting out and about is you're going to meet people from different types of industries and different organizations to the ones that you're working within. But you often find that opportunities in PMO, it doesn't really matter what industry you've come from. You know, it's relatively easy to move from, say, retail into financial services. It's relatively easy to move between education and the NHS and so on. You know, so you've got a wide variety of people that you could be meeting that can be really helping with your profession and job hunting in the future. And of course, number one, We can't ignore it, which is about displaying it prominently on your CV and profile. Because let's face it, that is one of the number one reasons why people utilize and go on training courses, especially around the time when they're getting a bit itchy about the job that they're currently in, or unfortunately they've already been made redundant or something like that and they have no choice. And it's, the training comes because I need to get it on a CV or a profile to show that I have, the right kind of things. So there are digital badge systems, and you've probably seen them all over things like LinkedIn. There are two available in PMO if you want to show your PMO credentials. The first one is P3O. It is the course that's been around the longest in PMO. Originally came out in 2008, got updated in 2013, still really popular today. And that one focuses on how to set up a PMO, what goes into, the requirements of what a PMO is doing, what kind of PMO, and all of that kind of good stuff. The essentials courses have a completely different vibe, and that is more about the individual role that you perform. So P3O is more about the PMO structure itself. The essentials courses are very much about your role. So the competencies that you need in order to be able to do the job. And both of those are certified courses, which means you can use the digital badge system. Now, the digital badge system is a really nice one because it gives you those visuals on profiles, but it's also a way, it's kind of like, I suppose, a professional passport. For every certification course you do, it's out there in the cloud and it's already, everything's verified, and you can share that with recruiters, anybody who's checking the hiring processes in terms of, you're proving that you do have these courses. The digital badge system really works really nicely like that. So it's, yes, we see a lot of them online, but, equally, another thing for you to also do, if you see somebody else, so for example, you've been on a P3O course, you've got your digital badge system, you've said, yes, promote it on my profiles, and that's great. But also, why not remember that when other people do it, you should also then comment on theirs and say, well, I did that course a couple of years ago, or I did that course 6 months ago. I really enjoyed it. How about you? Again, you're thinking about, connections that can come through it. It can do a number of different things. And it's, it's quite a nice system, certainly helping people to share their credentials. We know that the databases and the hirers want to see these things. Yeah, actually, the main reasons is that, the HR departments have set a role profile, a job profile, and a part of the requirement will be some kind of professional training. So actually, some of these courses are about being able to meet the minimum requirements for a lot of the jobs that are out there. Now, one of the issues in this course from PMO people is that you've got a number of different options in terms of your training and development, and PMO is only one. So PMO Learning is here to help with the PMO related training. But we also know that from a PMO point of view, that you probably need to be thinking about your project management related training. If you're working at program level, your program management related training. So that's the things like, MSP, for example. Not so good, actually, the latest version as the one previously. However, if you're working in program level, you probably want to make sure that you're up to date. You've got the portfolio levels, which of course the most popular, again, is the management of portfolios, MOP for short. You've got credentials that then go off into the specialist areas, so like management of value, management of risk, all of those kind of things. So the different areas, the benefits management, assurance, all of those kind of things. So you've got different areas in which you can pursue, which means there's a lot of knowledge there. There's a lot of things that, you've got to be thinking about in terms of which areas am I going to be, pursuing. And it makes sense that if you're thinking about looking for a new job, or you're now in that process, is really looking at the requirements of that job and thinking, okay, what's going to give me the best return on this particular piece of training budget that I have? Where is my weakness? Where is the thing that is going to be stopping me from potentially being shortlisted for this job? And to really think about, well, actually, it's probably going to be that training today that I'm going to focus on the most. Yeah. So again, you know, it's one of those things, but that's what makes PMO so great. It's just that we've got so much stuff we could be learning about. We could be going on training courses every week, you know. There's that much that we've got to be ahead of. So that's it. There's a number 10 different ways to think about your training and how it can really impact your finding work and how you're going to be looking for work in the future, things to think about now. So any questions? Anybody want to ask me anything about the materials that you've just been looking at today, and about any of the courses that have been mentioned, about any of the recruitment side of stuff? Happy to take any questions. I'll have a drink. Just use the chat if you'd like to. Okay, all right. So if you have got one, I've got a few more minutes. So yeah, Stephanie, you go ahead. You get typing. I'll just I'll carry on chatting until you've come up. So with PMO Learning, then one of the things then that we talked about is that we've got different types of courses, and I've just missed off the P3O one on that slide. I don't know what happened there. Is that you've got two different types. You've got certification-based training, and you've got stuff that's more specialized. And again, you know, it's thinking about the different areas with specialisms. You may not need that because actually your PMO doesn't do that kind of stuff, or the organization that you're working in today doesn't advocate that, or, you know, it's not going to be a decent piece of learning for you, you know. But again, certification-based training tends to be what people class as kind of like a foundation stone. So I'll do this first. It'll give me the wider kind of knowledge, certainly around P3O. It'll give you that wider knowledge, and then you can start to pick off all the more specialized areas. So for the P3O, question from Stephanie, for the P3O practitioner examination, how important are the case studies? P3O practitioner training exam, I thought were incredibly difficult. And maybe, do you know part of the problem with that is if you've been working in PMO for a while, and the difference is that you're starting to learn about different people's, it's a best practice approach, yeah? Any of the PeopleSoft Axelos approaches are about the best practice. So they're using, obviously, their ideal way of doing things. But of course, if you've been working in PMO for a while, you've got your own baggage, as it were. So actually, when it comes to do something like the P3O practitioner did them, you've almost got to forget about reality for a minute, because you're being examined on the you know, the materials that you're being taught on. So in terms of the case studies, the case study, you essentially get a case study for your examination. So there's quite a bit of time actually reading through that before you get onto the you know, the multiple choice questionings that go with it. And most people think that the multiple choice, oh, well, that sounds easy then, because that's just going to be a literal, you know, tick in a box. But it's the way these multiple choice questions are actually phrased, you know, are not as easy and as straightforward as there just being one answer. You know, it's almost like some of the questions are phrased in such a way that actually you've got 4 answers there and 2 of them are true. You know, it's that kind of thing where it makes it a little bit more complex. So yeah, for the P3O practitioner examination, I think it is, you know, it is a tricky one, but that's good. You know, it could have been a lot more simple. Oh yeah, and sorry, so then the question was how relevant are they for the examination? Because there's some case studies actually in the book. They're not at all. They're not referred to at all. So what you actually get in a P3O practitioner exam is a case study that your questions are related to. Yeah, but the case studies that are in the book today, a little out of date, because the last time it was updated was 2013, so they can't really do any kind of teaching against those elements. They're just there to give people some supplementary, I suppose, you know, some real life stuff against some of the stuff that you've been learning, but you don't actually get examined on those. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, so project management as APM and Project Magazine. This is another question. Where do PMO look for trends and new thinking? There's only, in my opinion, you've got a few different places. for PMO related stuff. You've got a few different bodies. So here in the UK, if you're listening in the UK right now, you've got House of PMO. In more globally, you've got PMO Global Alliance. You've got some people that are doing stuff out of the States. You've got PMO Leader that you could have a look at. And you've also got something called PMO Strategies or something called PMO Impact. Those are the main people, I think, that are doing stuff around the PMO world that are more community focused, I would say. But the interesting thing for PMO people is that we also have to look further afield. We have to, yes, you're right in that, looking at, keeping up to date with project management developments and program and portfolio and all that kind of stuff. But also we have to keep up to date with what's going on in the whole like AI analytics field, which, it's taken me ages to get my head around. There's the whole kind of IT piece, like, agile approaches, software, that kind of, that kind of thing. You've also got things like change management, business analysis. There's all, there's so many different areas that we touch on. We might not be doing deep dives into, but we kind of need to understand that, we are working in a multifaceted environment when we're working within change. And, the PMO is often seen as a place where people can come to find out stuff. And it is about us being able to, keep abreast what's going on in our industry. Our industry is project management and change. And then you've got the industry in which your organization's working within as well. So we've got a lot of different places. But hopefully that gives you some ideas on where you can go delve in for some PMO information as well. So thank you very much, Lisa. And it was Stephanie. Thanks for your questions. And I'm going to bring the session to a close. So hopefully, just a little bit of different thinking for a Friday, and we'll catch you again. We've got more lunch and learns coming up, and also taster sessions. Now, if you're not familiar already, if you head back to the PMO Learning website, you'll see right at the top of the banner there's some more sessions coming up. So please come and join us. We do taster sessions on some of the courses, and then these sessions, lunch and learns, it's just about picking off different aspects that we know PMO people might enjoy. So thanks very much for your attention and your time today. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you again soon.